Moscow has no problems with Yerevan. We are in constant contact with Pashinyan. Armenia has essentially recognized Azerbaijan's sovereignty over Karabakh. In Russia, unemployment is only 3%. This has never happened. The United States has publicly recognized the use of cluster munitions as a crime, but they themselves supply them to Ukraine. But the supply of these weapons, including depleted uranium shells, will not affect the situation at the front. If Kiev gets F-16 fighters, it will only prolong the conflict. Ukrainian saboteurs caught by the FSB were preparing an attack on a nuclear facility in the Russian Federation and stated that they were trained by British instructors. About the new wave of mobilization, 270,000 people have voluntarily signed military contracts in Russia over the past 6 to 7 months. Every day 1–1.5 thousand people come to sign contracts with the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation. There are no results of the counteroffensive. The losses of the APU are 71,000 people, 543 tanks, 18,000 armored vehicles. About the law on foreign agents, in the Russian Federation it is softer than in the USA. We do not row foreign agents. There are precedents for removing this status. Anyone who wants to criticize the country's policy can do so without going abroad, but they chose to leave. On the annexation of Crimea, only future generations will be able to objectively assess what we have done for the country. The interests of the state are above all. We put this versus at the forefront, and we are definitely not ashamed of it. We must definitely preserve the soul of Russia, our multinational and multi-confessional people. About Russian athletes who have changed their citizenship. I don't blame anyone, but for an athlete, when he steps on the podium and the anthem of his country sounds, it also has a certain meaning. About the transfer of Russian officials to Russian cars. There were no cars in the 90s, but now there are. Our cars may look more modest than Audi, Mercedes, but we need to take an example from India. Urus is expensive because it is not produced enough. It will go into series. It will become twice cheaper. Moskvich and Lada will also develop. Officials should definitely drive domestic cars. About whether he is worried about the large import of Chinese cars. We are developing our car industry. We are developing on our own base. Localization takes time. The government is dealing with the situation with gasoline prices. The West is stepping on the same rake as the Soviet Union in foreign policy. About Soviet tanks in Budapest and Prague. This part of Soviet policy was a mistake. About why he let the ex-head of the accounting chamber Alexei Kudrin go to Yandex. Kudrin wanted to go to work in business. We do not have a slave system, and the accounting chamber works rhythmically. About the co-founder of Yandex Volodya. He lives in Israel. Well, so he has to make such statements criticizing his, God grant him health, it does not hurt us. About Chubey. He ran away. Complex processes are going on in Rosnano. There is a big financial hole there. The United States is pushing allies and partners. They have no friends, only their own interests. I trust scientists. Regardless of nationality, there is no deprivation planned. There will be no deprivation. It is a pity that the lunar landing of the Luna 25 did not take place. But we have not completed the program. We will continue to work. About demography. It is very difficult to overcome this negative trend. The interests of Russians are above the influx of migrants. The situation with their influx must be approached carefully. It is impossible to allow the appearance of a ghetto in the Russian Federation. The Russian economy needs migrants, but there are not so many of them working in the labor market now. The average life expectancy in Russia has reached 74 years this year. In Russia, it is necessary to strengthen traditional and spiritual values. About the presidential election, we will talk at the end of the year. About Trump, we hear that Trump wants to solve the Ukrainian crisis in a few days. That's good. But he imposed more sanctions against Russia when he was president. It is unlikely that anything will change if he comes to power again. About Elon Musk, he is an outstanding person, an active and talented businessman. About Solzhenitsyn, he was a patriot of Russia and a nationalist in the good sense of the word. It will not be possible to slow down the development of China. The West is too late. Beijing did not scare the United States with chips, but with the fact that there are 1.5 billion of them and the economy is developing by leaps and bounds.